welcome to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith, the Executive Director of the Heart of Missouri chapter of the American Red Cross. And one thing that has changed, and there are a couple of things I want to talk about before we begin our show. The first thing is we have changed our name from the Capital Area chapter to the Heart of Missouri chapter, and we'll be talking about those changes a little bit later on in a different show, but I did want to bring that up. And joining me today for Meet the Red Cross is one of our board members. Morgan Fechtel is a board member, and she's going to be talking with us. In the second half of the show, we have a veteran, seasoned volunteer. Steve Stacey is going to join us then. So, Morgan, I want to welcome you to Meet the Red Cross, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Dave, for having me today.
Okay. One of the things, and it seems like since I've taken over, that I've changed names of a lot of things. And one of the things that we changed the name of from for an event that we're going to be hosting in June is from the Day of Heroes to the Lifesaver Awards. And you are one of the co-chairs for that event. You might tell us about that event and a little bit about the history of it.
Sure. The history of the event is it started out as the Day of Heroes, as you mentioned. We did agree to change the name to Lifesaver Awards. Not everyone considers himself a hero, but most people can identify with a lifesaver. Have they saved a life or taken steps to save a life in the future? So we're pretty excited about that change. In the past, it was also a luncheon. Brought a lot of people into that. Also happened during Red Cross month of March. This year it will be June the 26th. It will be in the evening, and it will be a barbecue at the North Jeff City Pavilion across the river. Okay.
And if you want to nominate somebody for that, what's the process that they can do that?
There'll be different outlets that there'll be nomination forms. You'll be able to fill that out and either email that in, or you'll be able to mail it into the office.
Okay. Seems to have been a lot of changes. Why do you think that all these changes have been necessary?
I think it's a great time for change. There's a lot of young people. You coming on board has been a great change. Just trying to get everyone of the 21 counties involved, have everybody feel a little bit more a part of this chapter. So I think it's a great thing.
Okay. The Lifesaver Awards, and I know that we talked about this in our committee meeting, that a lot of people that do, that really in our hearts are heroes, but when it comes to them standing up and being recognized for that, they feel uncomfortable for it. So the Lifesaver Awards, what are some of the categories that we're going to have in the Lifesaver Awards, and how would they qualify for that?
There'll be 6 different categories. There'll be the Marilyn DeFeo Good Samaritan Lifesaver Award. As its name says, is a Good Samaritan, someone who's done something for the community in which they live. There'll be the Medical Lifesaver Award, which is a new award this year. Opening it up to the medical field and someone who's saved a life there or taken the necessary steps to do that. There'll also be the Military Lifesaver Award. There'll be the Blood Services Lifesaver Award. The Youth Lifesaver Award, which is opened up to anyone under the age of 18 who has, such as a lifeguard, I know has one in the past. And there'll also be the Public Safety Lifesaver Award.
We talked about a lot of change that's going on, and we mentioned that at the beginning of the show that our name has changed. And why do you feel like that change to the Heart of Missouri has been one that can be positive?
I think it's very exciting. I know the board was very excited when you brought that to us. The current chapter includes 21 counties. I think oftentimes some of the counties around our area, the Jefferson City area, don't necessarily identify with Capital Area chapter. They think of the capital as Jefferson City and maybe some of those smaller surrounding areas. But opening it up to the Heart of Missouri, if you look at a map, we definitely are the Heart of Missouri. We're right there in the center of things.
Okay. Being a board member, you're involved in a number of activities that we have, but before we get into the Club Red part of it, which is something that you're really deeply involved in, tell me why you became a board member for the American Red Cross.
The Red Cross is something everyone hears about when they're growing up, no matter where they live. I didn't always know all of the things that the Red Cross did. Gabe Holsey came up to me and asked me if I would be willing to join the board and help the youth in our community kind of get involved. And I was very excited to open up the possibilities of letting everyone in our generation know what the Red Cross does outside of disaster services and blood services.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my follow-up question, is since you've been on the board, what have you learned about the Red Cross that you didn't know before?
Oh, I've learned all sorts of things. I didn't know there was animal CPR, which was an interesting thing. Just all the classes that they offer, all of the small things they do. They don't necessarily you kind of forget about the local fires. You forget about the local disasters that happen here, and sometimes you read about them in the newspaper, but you don't realize how that impacts our community. So it's been interesting to see how the Red Cross has gotten involved in those.
Okay. And we talked about Club Red, and that's something that you've been involved in for a while. And
Yes.
tell us about Club Red, and then I think that you got an event. This show will air throughout the entire month of March, but there's an event that we'll still go ahead and talk about anyway.
Okay.
But tell us about Club Red and how that got started here.
Club Red is our effort to get the Generation X and Generation Y a little bit more involved in the things that the Red Cross does. Kind of get our donors started at an early age learning what the Red Cross does and get involved in other ways besides donating money sometimes at a time that they don't always have it. Just opening up those possibilities of new potential board members, donors in the future, and just different people that can help on disasters.
Okay. Now, the Club Red they had one of your events, I guess your first event you had
Yes.
was a pub crawl that you had in downtown Jefferson City. How was that? How did that go?
We ended up reaching our goal of the money that we hoped to raise. We had a bit of difficulties because the World Series coincided with our event, but it was a Halloween pub crawl. I think it got our name out there. We started a Facebook page at that time. We got a few followers, and I think every event will allow us to get a few more.
Okay. Now you have an event that's going to be this month as well.
Correct.
You might tell us about that event.
It's on March the 10th. It's called the Disaster Dunk Basketball Tournament. We're hoping to have emergency services teams, 8 teams. It'll be a double elimination basketball tournament. It will go from 9:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon with a reception to follow in a local pub.
Okay. Now, disaster dunk, is there going to be a dunking contest as well?
I don't believe there's a dunking contest, but there is a free throw contest in between the different games.
Okay. And you have some celebrities that are going to be involved in that as well?
Zach Paul is going to be our announcer, and then just different local celebrities hopefully will stop by. We're hoping you will stop by as well.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm a celebrity. I am a character, but I'm not sure I'm a celebrity. But, the Club Red, now you talked about Generation X and Generation Y. That is anybody that's under the age of 40?
That's correct.
All right. And if they would like to get involved in that, how would they do that, and who would they get in touch with?
We have a Facebook page, so they're more than welcome to go out and follow us on the Facebook page. They can contact the chapter office and get in contact with Kayla or I as well.
Okay. Now, let's go back and kind of go back and talk some about the Lifesaver Awards that we are going to be having in June. The categories that we have, how do you go about nominating somebody for that?
So you'll have the form, but it's someone that you in your heart feel has either saved a life or taken those necessary steps, taken a class to prepare themselves to save a life. So they'll fill out those forms and then send them in, and then there'll be a committee who will go through those.
Okay. The process of choosing those going to be a very difficult one.
It is. I think there's so many great people in this town and in all of the towns that we serve that could win this award at any time, so they can nominate them year after year if they'd like.
Well, I know that we talked about the 21 counties that we're going to have, and we are opening this up, the Lifesaver Awards, up to all of those counties. So if you live here in Jefferson City and you're watching this on JCTV, and you know somebody that's from Carrollton or from Cuba, then you're still eligible to
That's
recommend
correct.
them. Okay. Your involvement with the board, and we've tried to engage more and more young people. How rewarding of an experience has that been for you?
It's been really rewarding, just again hearing about all the different things that the Red Cross does and knowing that you're a part of that and you're helping make it better in those 21 different counties.
Okay. And how many do we have? How many younger people have we got that are on what I consider younger people that are on the board right now and serving?
I'd say for the Club Red age, I believe right now there's 3 and there's 1 potential on the way. So.
Okay. All right. And if anybody wants to get involved with Club Red, do you have regular meetings or?
Right now, in preparation for the event that we have on March the 10th, we have meetings once a week on Wednesdays. After that, we'll start announcing our meetings on our Facebook page.
Okay. Well, Morgan, I want to thank you for being on the show today. I want to thank you for all that you've done for us with Club Red. I look forward to future events that we're going to have with Club Red, and when we do, we'll be sure and let people know that are watching this show. And thank you for what you do in serving.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me today.
All right. We're going to be right back. We're going to be talking with Steve Stacey, so stay with us.
Lead paint poisoning affects over 1 million children today. If your home was built before 1978, call or log on.
Welcome home, man.
And welcome back to Meet the Red Cross. I'm Dave Griffith, the Executive Director, and joining me is a face that's been on Meet the Red Cross before. Steve Stacey is a veteran volunteer with the Red Cross, and Steve, we're awfully glad to have you here with us today.
It's good to be here.
I just want to talk to you first before we get into some of the experiences that you've had serving as a volunteer with the Red Cross. If someone is sitting out there in our audience today and they want to become involved and they want to be a volunteer for the Red Cross, how do they go about that?
Well, the very first step is be proactive. Call the Red Cross office here in town and tell them that you're interested in becoming a volunteer. If it's in disaster service work, then if you're excited about the potential of going out all over this country and working with disasters, of which I have done many times, there are some groundwork classes that we would like you to have before you go.
Okay. Now, besides disaster services, which is really what you've been involved with, there are other types of volunteer opportunities that the Red Cross offers. Is that correct?
Oh, that is correct. The Red Cross has a place for everyone. You know, sometimes you don't want to be out in the limelight. You want to be in the background. If you have some computer skills, if you have phone skills, if you would just like to use any of your abilities and use them for the area of the Red Cross, we have a place for you.
Okay, well, since you're with disaster services, and let's talk about how they would become a volunteer with disaster. So there are classes, obviously, that they're going to have to take. Is that?
Yes. There's roughly about 3 classes that would qualify you to go on a national disaster. An introduction to disaster, a shelter class, and it depends on what you're interested in. You can go into several different areas, whatever you want to go into. But roughly about 3 classes will qualify you to be able to go on the national system.
Okay. Now we talk about the national disasters, and just at the end of February, with the tornadoes that happened in the southern part of Missouri, somebody from Jefferson City is not probably going to respond to that unless we're called and asked. Can you kind of go through that process?
Yes. What happens with Red Cross, at the very first time the disaster happens in the community, like in the southern part of Missouri, the local chapter is the first responder. If they can't handle it, or is a bigger firm, they go a little bit broader base to the state support. And then if it becomes bigger than they can handle, it goes on the national support. And each one of those levels provides more volunteers into those areas. What's interesting about Red Cross, with the training that we receive, and those classes can be anywhere from 4 hours to 8-hour classes. There's a couple of them that are 2-day classes, but it's not a big commitment. Then you're put into a system where then when something does happen, you're called, can you respond? And if your timetable at that moment says, yes, I can, then within 24 hours, you're going to have a chance, that 24-hour period, chance to get ready to respond. And if it's a close one, you may drive down there. Most chances, if it's further away, you'll be flowing down there, and all the expenses are part of the Red Cross that pays for your trip there, pays for your trip back, pays for your expenses on a job. So there's no out-of-pocket expenses for you. So a volunteer does cost Red Cross some dollars to maintain that.
Right, right. Now we talk about disasters, and when we think about, when we mention that word, we immediately think of Joplin or Katrina or 9/11. But there are disasters that happen every single day with fires right here in town. Talk to us about the response of those people to our local community.
If you can't go on a national disaster, not everybody can. They have jobs because that's usually a 2 to 3 week commitment. You can become part of what we call the DAT team, the Disaster Action Team. And that really responds to local disasters, single family fires or floods or mishaps or whatever that could be. There's so many, there's numerous, that a call will be given, and that night, usually that's when it happens, and then the team is brought together to respond to that disaster. And you can be part of that, and never even leave the county. Okay. You know, so big disasters, national disasters, single family disasters, American Red Cross is there to provide support and help.
All right. Well, let's focus on you for a little bit.
Okay.
And let's talk about how long you've been involved, and really why did you get involved with the American Red Cross?
Well, I got involved around 1984 with this chapter, and I didn't go out for a national deployment until about 1992 with Hurricane Andrew. And I'd been trying, I had a job too, and I would try to use my vacation or whatever, at least one disaster a year. So that was doing my part. And I think what I really appreciate about American Red Cross, there's a service that we talk about all the different things that we provide. Well, there's a service I call the service of service. And that American Red Cross provides the service to train you to respond. 9/11 happened, everybody said, how can I help? I want to be there. Did you do the groundwork? Did you do it preparation before that? These things are high security a lot of times. American Red Cross provides the channel for us to go and respond. Just because we want to, we don't have the means to respond to a disaster and do what we say, man, I want to help. Now, it's limited. This channel that American Red Cross provides through the training and the organization will get you to places that you can never get to on your own, to be able to respond and help our fellow man. What a tremendous service.
I know that we could talk about a number of different disasters that you've been on, but one that I think that sticks out in a lot of people's minds and will forever live in our hearts is 9/11 and the events that happened there. Let's talk for a few minutes about that and about that experience, what you did, how you were deployed, and maybe a story or two that.
Okay. I was called out, and from here we took our ERV, the Emergency Response Vehicle. And it's kind of the big red and white ambulance vehicle that Red Cross has for disaster service work. And we were asked to respond, and so we drove our ERV from here up to New York City. When we got there to respond, then we were to find what our job title was going to be, what our position was, where we were going to be located, what hotel or shelter we were going to stay in, all those that type of information. But we were there about 3 days. We made it there about 3 days after 9/11 itself. And I was located at a kitchen in food service by the Holland Tunnel, which we had 4 main kitchens when we started with, and we were the closest kitchen to Ground Zero. That became my initiative plan. And when I first got there, we were put on the midnight shift, of course, and because we fed around the clock. And we fed out of a mobile kitchen that was supplied by the Southern Baptist in the parking lot of UPS. And so we had semi-trailers that were mobile kitchens, and we did our food service out of that. One night I was 2 o'clock. the morning delivering a breakfast meal to the shelter, and it was a school, the closest little school to Ground Zero that was safe, where all the workers were coming for respite and for meals and to take a break and that type of thing. The place was empty. I dropped off my supplies, and I seen over in the far corner of the auditorium a rescue worker in full garb, the helmet, the gloves, not the gloves, but the coat, all the rescue equipment, filthy. I mean, totally dirt, okay? He was sitting there, and he was staring at a bowl of cereal. And I looked at him again a few minutes later, and he was still staring at that bowl of cereal. So I kind of knew that there was a problem. I went over to him, put my hand on his shoulder, and said, "Can I help you?" And there was no answer. And I asked again with a pat on his shoulder, "Can I help you?" And he continued to stare at that bowl of cereal. And he finally looked up at me. And the only thing that was clean about him was the line from the tears coming down both eyes. And he looked at me in the eye and he says, "We can't find anybody." Wow. They were working around the clock. They were doing everything they possibly could do. And they were all so discouraged that they couldn't find one more person. And that was, when anyone was found, I mean, cheers went up everywhere. But that was very early on. After going through the debris, a few days later, they weren't finding anybody. So the commitment they were doing, they were very discouraged. We were there providing help and support, and for them, I was able to then get a mental health worker over there to console him a little bit more, and that's the last that I'd seen of him. But during the day, we were driving the IRV to the Ground Zero. Streets were empty. Not very many people have ever gone down New York City in empty streets. And our IRV was driving down, and we came across a whole crowd of people because they got as close as they could, and they stayed there. Thousands and thousands of people stayed on the street corners. They saw us coming, and we were coming to a stoplight. I said, "Oh my, what's going on?" All of a sudden, they covered the street. They came in after us and blocked the road and everything. I did not feel worthy. What they were trying to do is touch the IRV, touch us as we went by, thanking us because we were there to save them. Didn't feel worthy. Wow.
Well, Steve, I want to have you back on another show. There's so many stories that you can tell us, and it's very impactful for us. And,
yes.
And we are blessed in our community, and we're blessed in our country to have volunteers like yourselves that are willing to serve and to go to places that many of us can't go.
What an honor. It's an honor.
So, Steve, thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us on this edition of Meet the Red Cross. We'll see you next time.